According to the World Council on Tall Buildings, the Petronas Towers are the tallest twin towers in the world. Their striking presence on the skyline of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, is clear. Opened in 1999, the building's design, and thus the message it attempts to portray to the world, was not an accident. According to its website, the Petronas Towers are meant to symbolize Malaysia as a forward-looking nation who is proud of her heritage and is optimistic about her future. Its design and structure aim to highlight the strong cultural values of the city through its visual similarity to Malaysia's famous traditional handicrafts, basket weaving. The fact that the towers were named after, constructed by, and painted in the colors of Petronas, Kuala Lumpur's national oil company, is proudly touted on the website. Within the country, the towers are viewed as an international icon, a major tourist attraction, and a symbol with the ability to market Kuala Lumpur to audiences around the world, and a structure deemed global enough by the rest of the world to end up on a DHL shipping container in our very own university city. But is Kuala Lumpur a global city just because it has epic, record-breaking skyscrapers? In order to answer this question and to understand Kuala Lumpur today, it's essential to understand the city's history.
Kuala Lumpur is in the federal territory of Kuala Lumpur in peninsular Malaysia. The Federation of Malaysia was formed in 1948 when the British-ruled territories on the peninsula came together with Kuala Lumpur as the capital. The Federation was granted independence in 1957. Malaysia was formed in 1963 when Singapore joined the Federation. In the 1960s and 1970s, Malaysia was a large exporter of raw materials and was the world's largest producer of palm oil. Malaysia's economy grew throughout the 70s and 80s when it developed a large natural gas and oil sector. The goal of the new economic policy, instated from 1970 to 1990, was to reduce the ethnic economic divide and alleviate poverty. This middle-income country is hoping to reach high-income status by 2020 with the creation of the Economic Transformation Program, placed under Prime Minister Najib. This country hopes to attract international capital, technology industries, and biotechnology industries. Currently, export goods represent 80% of its GDP, and the cost of fuel and oil, domestically and internationally, along with budget deficits, have forced Kuala Lumpur to reduce subsidies on sugar. Despite this, Malaysia was recently included in HSBC's Top 50 Economies of 2050, categorized as a fast growth country, slated for more than 5% average growth in 2050.
Kuala Lumpur has fared well compared to other cities of Malaysia. Since 1991, it has had one of the fastest growth rates in the country. The annual growth rate of Kuala Lumpur in the 70s was 7.58%, and although that rate has slowed today, it is still the richest city in the country. All over the city, skyscrapers and other modern structures have been popping up as a result of Kuala Lumpur's increasing wealth. The Petronas Twin Towers are a prime example of this development. The Twin Towers house businesses that embody the globalization and quickly rising upper class of Kuala Lumpur. However, despite its ranking among the top 40 competitive cities in the world, Kuala Lumpur fails to make the same top 40 list in terms of income per person. In other words, though Kuala Lumpur is wealthy, a bird's-eye view of its skyscrapers hides the uneven distribution of wealth within the city. Only by looking at the street level of Kuala Lumpur do we begin to see inequalities. Parks, recreational areas, and other public spaces are increasingly traded or sold by the government in return for new, record-breaking, and hopefully iconic buildings. One example of this is Merdeka Park. Established in 1958 by the first Prime Minister of Malaysia, Merdeka Park was popular to residents and visitors of Kuala Lumpur for a number of years. Many considered this area surrounding the park as the birthplace of Kuala Lumpur, and in general it was regarded highly as a local cultural icon. However, in 1994, the public land of Merdeka Park was traded to the government-linked company United Engineers Malaysia Berhad in exchange for the construction of a national million-dollar sports complex. In 1998, despite many protests from grassroots organizations, the UEM demolished Merdeka Park, and in 2011, the Prime Minister of Malaysia declared that a new skyscraper would be built on the demolished land. The 118-story Menara Warisan is part of the PM's 10-year development plan. Besides the grassroots opposition to this building, there have been other visible dissenters. The local Prime Minister has spoken out against this tower, arguing that The supply of office space in Kuala Lumpur has exceeded demand without Warasan Tower, and it's not reasonable to give new approval for new development of office space. Despite the fact that a poll in 2010 by Merdeka Center showed the majority of voters in peninsular Malaysia opposed the tower, construction has continued. When it is finished in 2020, the tower will be taller than Malaysia's current tallest skyscraper, the Petronas Twin Towers. It will house office space, a hotel, a retail business center, and many levels of parking spaces, all of which indicate the global citizen the building is attempting to attract. Certainly not the same as the local Kuala Lumpurians that enjoyed visiting Merdeka Park back in the day. The demolition of a park, which was once proclaimed by the Prime Minister to be a park for all people, for all posterity, could not be more symbolic of Kuala Lumpur's attempt to rapidly globalize and the people it has been forced to ignore in doing so. The neoliberal principles that the city has adopted as it vies for a spot on the global stage have forced the destruction of public open space.
We must have parks. We can't take a park away.
We need more world-class, iconic parks.
And we must have a say in the development, in the planning of the city.
On a broader level, city officials are also reworking the culture of Kuala Lumpur by replacing the old Kuala Lumpur with a palatable modern one. It's a city that wants to be recognized globally because of its $5 billion tower, designed in the style of a woven basket. It's a city that is trying to rework its image through a Western lens, and in the case of the Petronas Towers, through the eyes of an Argentinian-American architect. The Facebook page for Merdeka Park is filled with images from the 60s and 70s of kids and adults enjoying the park, as well as links to recent blog posts opposing other development projects throughout the city. One link takes you to a 2013 Malay Mail article that describes a group of concerned citizens and civil society advocates conducting guided heritage walks to raise awareness of heritage conservation and defend heritage areas from the heavy construction currently underway. Rakan KL believes that if their efforts receive more coverage, more Malaysians will join their efforts to preserve the open spaces and heritage sites of Kuala Lumpur. Many artists have joined the fight for preservation, some creating art installations in the form of pop-up parks to remind people how easily and quickly public spaces can be grabbed from the rakyat.
In 2000, the mayor of Kuala Lumpur commissioned the draft Kuala Lumpur Structure Plan 2020 as an outline to guide city development until 2020. In its own words, the plan contains the vision, goals, development strategies, policies, and proposals to realize Kuala Lumpur as a world-class city. This plan raised issue with the decline in open space in the city center, the shortage of public open space, and the shortage of suitable sites for community activities. Initially, it seemed as though this plan would finally be a vehicle for the public's voice. However, though they recognized the problems, the 2020 plan was very broad and only an outline of what the planners wanted the city to be. No evidence has emerged that any of these public open space issues have been dealt with, and the development of Menara Warisan would suggest that the opposite has occurred.
Given its trajectory, it seems that Kuala Lumpur will only continue to grow and increase its presence on the global scale. And as the city grows, so too will its issues and inequalities. In its rush to develop, Kuala Lumpur seems to be forgetting the most important part of a city, its citizens.